Good morning, everybody. This is Michael Losier, and welcome to the daily inspirational Law of Attraction and NLP calls with our favorite guest, Linda Story, and we're so glad that you're here. This is the third class in the 10-class series, and just a reminder, be taking notes, and you're here to learn lots of great stuff. And again, just a reminder, the purpose of this call is to inspire and uplift you and educate you, and ideally, you're all going to leave with tools that you can start applying to your life right away so you could have a rich, full, delicious life. Would that be okay, yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, very good. Well, I'm going to, right off the bat, we're going to welcome Linda Story because we have a new subject today, and I want to make sure that we have enough time to do that. So, Linda Story, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
And tell us about today's topic before we hear from about the past stuff.
Today's topic is another NLP language, what would you call it?
Strategy, maybe?
Strategy.
Yeah.
I got lots of words. And it's reframing. And everyone is doing it already, especially people that have been practicing Law of Attraction. But what we're going to do today is give it even more attention, do it more deliberately, more intentionally, and just maybe put the meaning behind what is reframing all about, what are some of the benefits. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to build a little bit on what we've covered in the last two classes with, the 4 different communication styles. So what does reframing do for visuals, auditory, kinesthetic, and auditory digital? So I'll cover that.
Well, that might be a good time to note because there's people that someone just joined yesterday, so that means they wouldn't have heard the first 2 classes. You do have access to all 30 classes that I recorded on my own, plus all of Linda's classes inside the library. And ideally, because the way Linda and I designed this 10 classes, that each of them kind of feed on the last one. So ideally, you take time to listen to the prior classes, not all the 30 ones, but the ones Linda and I are doing together. So it makes more sense, and I'm sure that's what we all want. Okay, go ahead, Linda.
Good, okay. So I think I mentioned this in one of the other classes about the power of words, and that, words can either heal or they can hurt, they can bring clarity, they can bring confusion. I love something I read recently about Maya Angelou says about words, that they go into our body. Words can go into the body of another person, and then they can create a feeling of either hopelessness, joy, or resentment, or resistance. So it's really important that we choose our words wisely, and our subconscious mind is listening 24/7 to the words that we're listening to and to the words that we speak. So we want to choose words that really uplift and encourage us, bring the best out in ourselves and other people, and help to increase our vibration, improve our mood. So basically, what reframing does, it gives us an opportunity to find the good. So Michael was wanting to know, how could we reframe the call today? Well, hey, we've got this abundance of conference lines. So find the good. That's what reframing is. Sometimes
it's ugly.
What's that?
Sometimes it's ugly. But Linda can still make it pretty.
Well, I just put my rose-colored glasses on, and away we go. And I also want to talk later on, just before we leave, about when not to reframe, because there's certain times don't do it. We need to calibrate the timing of whether or not we're going to stay in rapport. So for the visual communication style, what reframing does, it helps them to change their perspective so they can see the situation in a different light. For auditory, when words are reframed and they're hearing something, it will sound better to them. It will feel believable. For kinesthetics, they hear a reframe, something that's not working right for them, hear a reframe, it's going to feel better. And it will help them reduce resistance and will uplift them. And for the auditory digital style, which is our logical, thinking, rational part of who we are, it gives them an opportunity to reevaluate the situation, to help them come to a different conclusion. It also will perhaps make better sense to them, and they may feel acknowledged, if they're complimented or there's a reframe like that. So I'm just going to give you a few quick little reframes that happened for me, and then let's build a list together. Let's talk about what would we do in a certain situation, because I know all of you are doing it already, and we'll just get some ideas from each other. So one time my husband and I were taking some spiritual training, and our teacher said to us, oftentimes people get really annoyed, really frustrated, full of fear and anger when someone cuts us off in traffic. And I always remember this because it happened just like a week ago for my husband and I. And he went off into some, cursing and really annoyed with the driver ahead of us. And I said, well, don't you remember what Guruji said to us? He says, imagine that the person in that vehicle that just did that is your very best friend. And really, it changes what we would say to ourselves. It would be something like, wow, so-and-so sure is in a hurry, or I wonder what's on her mind today. So that's a reframe. That's one that's always stuck with me. And here's a really dark side of a reframe. I was talking to a friend last night on the phone, and earlier this year, she tried to commit suicide. Obviously, it's a failed attempt because we're talking. And she's very, very happy to be alive. She was off to her new doctor's office, and she says, well, I didn't really want to tell him about my failed suicide attempt. And I said, it'd be really good for you to reframe that. I said, what about thinking that your flight home just got canceled? Well, she laughed and laughed and laughed till she almost fell off her chair. So I think that's what she's going to call it, her flight got canceled. So that's a reframe on something that would, the word suicide, most people would really be, feel uncomfortable with that. So anyways, we put some humor and some lightness into it. So Michael and I were talking yesterday about a few reframes about when a person might lose their job. And Michael, you had a couple of good thoughts around that.
Well, when I left my government job, I didn't lose it. I actually left it, and I was ready to do that. I'm trying to figure out how I reframed that. I don't know.
Well, we talked
thinking?
yesterday about just like, look at the great opportunities now to do what it is you really love.
Right. Oh, yeah, when someone loses their job, it's like, oh, I lost my job, or, I just lost my boyfriend. And I said, oh, great. What a great opportunity for you to start over again and attract exactly what you want.
That's right. Yeah. What would you like to do with your life now?
Yeah. Other people have heard me talk before about, about people feeling sad and they need someone to complain to and cry on their shoulders. And it's like, well, they'll find somebody else to do that. If they're telling me they've come to get a reframe because they know that I won't put up with it very long.
Yeah.
Oh, I just lost a client. I said, well, they're your ideal client? No. And I said, okay, you've just created a space to attract a new one. So just say that. Okay, I've got room now to attract an ideal client.
And you've got a good reframe, too, for when people want to unload their woes and sorrows with you, and you've abbreviated it to BMW, right?
Say that again, sorry.
To BMW?
To BMW.
Well, I thought you and Rebecca did that, and when you had your business meetings, and it was you have like 30 seconds to bitch, moan, and whine.
Oh, yeah, we would have a little period there.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
We can only do it in this moment right now.
That's right. That was a great reframe.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got 30 seconds to BMW, and that's it.
Yeah, BMW.
So I like that.
I don't remember that. That must be somebody else.
Don't remember that?
No, it must be somebody else.
Oh, okay.
But I'll own it.
Yeah, let's own it.
Okay.
I like that one.
Okay, good.
Also, I had a client, and she was talking about her relationship ending. And she went on, and I was talking about different things. And I said just a few words that made a huge difference to her. Now, some reframes, people will really, own it, and sometimes it will just, it doesn't really go in very deeply or doesn't make that much sense. But anyways, her relationship ended, and I said, well, one way you could look at it was that rather than taking it so personally, is that on a higher vibrational level, maybe your sacred contract ended, or maybe you're just no longer a match. Mm-hmm. And the feeling that she was no longer a match really put her into a different space. And then she, we did some EFT and that sort of thing with it. But just saying that they weren't a match took some of the sting out of it for her. That's
right. Yeah, I think I teach that as well when we talk about relationships, and people, they don't know how to end a relationship, or when they go on a date or something. It'd be like, it's really okay to say, you know what, I don't think we're quite a match, and that's a nice way to reframe, and you don't have to blame anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you go to the buffet, you don't feel guilty because you didn't choose the hot spice or the mild spice. You just say, no, that's not a match. That's not a match. And we're always about seeking matches. So it's a nice way to reframe that experience. It's like, well, I'm glad we met and we got a chance to know each other. And that's my favorite thing, isn't it? And
yeah, that's sort of the bridge to the reframe.
Yeah, it's the bridge to the reframe. And my friend Eric does that a lot. He mocks me, actually. He said, and we're not a match. And you could look at it this way. So it's a nice bridge to do that.
Yeah. So you can reframe just single words. I'll just give you a few examples, and then let's just,
Yeah, I'd like to hear some crappy stuff from people so we can reframe it for them.
Yeah, so when people are worried, Michael, one of the words is to move from a place of being worried to a place of being curious. And curiosity, it's like, oh, wow, what's going to happen next? What are my choices? What are my opportunities here?
And even the word anxious, people say, I'm really anxious about that. And I'll say, do you mean excited?
Yeah.
And they say, yeah, that's what I mean. So, you might want to consider that when you say anxious, you're really meaning excitement because there seems to be a fine line with that vibration.
Yeah.
At least trying to determine it.
And the term don't forget, I was in an office the other day and they had this big sign at a machine saying don't forget to turn this off. And it could be reframed to always remember. I mean, right away, the subconscious mind gets rid of the word don't, and it's forget to turn the machine off.
Yeah.
So just reframing that to always remember.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear from a few people who have a situation or know of something, and in our wizardry, we'll see how we can help reframe that.
Yeah. What I do in my seminars, and this is kind of a reframe too, I'll say, I'd like to hear from someone that's having a challenge, or maybe you know somebody that is. In other words, it might not be you, but it could be your friend.
Maybe your friend John.
Yeah, maybe your friend, quote unquote, has this problem. You want to help them out. So, it might not be you. It could be somebody you know that complains about something or something bad's happened, and would like to demonstrate, or Linda would like to demonstrate how to reframe things and how it's really about law of attraction, because the reframing makes you think about something different, which then changes your vibration. It's an awesome skill to have. Who'd like to
Michael,
go first?
what you just did there by saying it may not be you, it could be your friend, that's a reframe.
That's a reframe?
That's a reframe. That's bringing humor into it, and all jokes are reframes too.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a reframer.
Okay, does anyone have anything?
Hi, this is Danny.
Danny?
Danny, yeah.
Hi. I always hear people talk about the lack of funds, like not having enough money.
Right.
So in that situation, how can you reframe that?
Well, one reframe that I heard from someone that I really thought was cute was, I'm temporarily out of cash.
Yeah.
That was one.
And boy, is your wallet ever ready to receive some more money. You've created lots of space, lots of voids, and the universe loves to fill a void. We love how the universe knows that this empty wallet or empty purse that you have, it's really intended to collect more cash. Lucky you to have room to have more money in your wallet.
And then another one that Michael says all the time is lots can happen.
Yeah, so that's a reframe from that scarcity, too.
Yeah, that's right.
Lots can happen.
Lots can happen. So you can go on a rampage with, law of attraction desire statement to, lift and change the energy and the vibration of whatever the concern is. You just go right into, so what is it that I do want? That's the magic reframe question.
Yeah.
So what do I want?
And I think
the other thing I usually hear, too, of people say a lot of times is, I can't afford that.
Yes.
So how would you reframe that?
It could be I'm choosing to spend my money differently.
Or something else is more important. People say, I can't afford that. I don't have enough money. And it's like, well, I know that you're doing this, and I wouldn't say that, but they're doing other things with their money. And said, oh, well, it's all about choices.
Yeah.
If you really wanted this, you could choose this instead of something else. So it sounds like you're really clear about what your choices are and how you're spending money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it could also start with the two words, I've decided, I've decided I'm focusing on spending my money over here right now.
I was talking to a friend of mine this week that doesn't have lots of money, and you can hear it in his vibrations, and he said, I need enough money to pay my rent. And I would say, what if you got way more than you needed? So you can see how that's all he was vibrating. Just enough for rent, please. I don't need to eat, bathe, or dress. Just enough for rent. It's like, you have to watch what you're saying. I said, I'd like an abundance of money to pay my rent and to clothe myself and have good food. And it's like, that's what I'd like. It's all about reframing. People love to be reframed.
People love what?
They love to be reframed.
They do. They do. And with lots of fun and sometimes with the fun. Sometimes if I'm in a room and there's women that are my age and they're 1 minute they've got their sweater on, the next minute they're all flushed in the face and they're taking it off. And, you can just look at them and say, wow, don't you love those power surges? I mean, meanwhile, they're having a hot flash and they're just so uncomfortable. So just reframing hot flashes to power surges or spiritual surge.
I remember one time, Linda, we were deep in a session, and I was crying, and I felt all kinds of sadness, and you said, isn't that nice that you can have those feelings? That's not the time to try to reframe that. Isn't it nice?
Yeah.
Isn't it nice that you can have these feelings?
And some of the times when, I'll just mention this now, some of the times when not to reframe is when a person's in a really deep state of grief or anger or rage or really strong emotion. Sometimes all you really want to do is validate their experience. Mm-hmm. So if they're in a deep state of grief or worry or something like that, you can just validate, I'm sorry this has happened to you. That's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah.
How can I support you? So there's times that you don't have to fix it. And I've got a book title here, and it's especially good for the kinesthetics. And the book is called I Don't Have to Make Everything All Better. Yeah, I don't have to make everything all better.
Yeah.
And so we can mind our own vibration. We can mind our own business and not always feel that we have to reframe, but we still want to have the compassion and to really be present with that person.
Mm-hmm. I remember having somebody call me that, was kind of reminiscing of a person in their life that had passed away, and they were feeling lots of sadness, and they said, I don't want to feel sadness. I'm done grieving, and then so I've kind of got their permission to reframe them. So I asked them to build a list right on the phone and start telling me 100 things that they learned from that person that has benefited their lives, and it was their mother, and they said, well, she taught me how to make this, and she taught me about this, and all of a sudden she's on like item number 9, and now what she's doing, she's reaching for all the appreciation moments that she experienced from her mother, and you can't hold two vibrations at the same time. So that was an experience where she was ready to be reframed. I'm calling to be reframed here.
Yeah.
Let's hear from some more people. What are some things that you'd like to help us reframe if you haven't caught on to how to do this or just want some practice?
Can I make a comment?
Go ahead.
This is Maria. I know yesterday I did what I believe to be a reframe where there was somebody who was a potential business partner, and they just said to me, I think I'm just going to have to wait until January. And I think in the past that would have been something that I would have received in a negative, but I was like, okay, that's great. And then when I left, I thought in my head, well, this is not a match at this moment.
Yes.
And I said at this moment, which really felt good, and I felt very detached. So would that be a reframe?
Totally.
Sure.
Yeah.
You could even set in your head, okay, so it sounds like it's going to take him or her a couple months to line up their energy so it matches mine. That'll be perfect. Call me back when you're a match. Because that's sometimes what happens, right? It's like the first time we met, we really didn't click, and the second time we really clicked. Well, maybe the first time you met, one of your vibrations was off your normal vibration point. It's like if you don't feel good, don't go out to a networking meeting because you'll meet other people that meet your vibration. It's like, this isn't the right time. I'm going to wait till my vibration's lined up. So you could reframe that experience by saying, okay, so his vibration's going to match mine in January. Perfect, and we'll connect in January. The other thing you could have done, of course, was chew on the disappointment of that and offer that vibration, and that's not healthy. So the way you reframe that experience quickly was helpful.
And I like those 3 words, at this moment, because it takes you from right now to where it is to all the possibilities. And another 2 words to use are right now. So you wake up in the morning, you have a sore throat, whatever. Oh, I have a sore throat right now.
Yeah.
2 minutes from now, could be gone.
Yeah, there's another one that you taught me, too, is to reframe, to say things that was in the past. You say, well, in the past I used to overeat, or in the past I used to, get lazy over that. And that was a way to be able to say it, but put it in a different frame.
Right. So like when I'm coaching and after a person has done some EFT or some tapping, and this is the NLP language patterns, it's like, so that fear that you used to have, what's that like now? So you're talking about it as if it's in the past.
Yes.
As if they, didn't even arrive with it. And people will go to that place too. So it takes them out of that, having that emotion in that present moment. Okay. Anyone else that we can help?
Hi, it's Tracy. Can you say a little bit more about, you were saying about being worried to curious? So if I'm, feel worried about what I'm going to do or how I'm going to get some of this stuff done.
Right. So to, talk to your subconscious mind in a way, and instead of it being worry thoughts, to just really ramp up your curiosity. Like, what could it be like? What will it be like? And then go into imagining what it would be like.
Right. Because worrying is just to create a negative story.
Yeah.
It hasn't even happened yet. It's just a story.
It's out in the future.
Yeah, so change the story to something that you would like.
Yeah. So I'm curious as to how this is going to turn out, and then go into the place of choice and where you are in control, and focus on that, put your attention on that. Take that, what's called that inspired action. Because usually the minute we take some action, the worry stops. Do something.
Yeah.
And the first thing to do is to think different thoughts.
Good.
Does that answer that?
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
I think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good.
And I had a client, too, and the client went from feeling stupid in a situation, and what he said was, at the end, he says, I feel really relaxed with myself right now. So that was a reframe.
Mm-hmm.
He created that himself. And instead of being judgmental when we're thinking and watching other people, to be interested in their differences. I think, and I think the whole NLP communication model takes us to that place. Instead of being judgmental that, let's just say, timing is so important for Michael, and maybe he's going to get impatient with us if we keep him on the line or something, just to go into the place like, wow, timing is so important to the visuals. I'm just really noticing these differences. And just being interested and curious in that.
Yeah. And when you know that about your friend, you like Linda, when you're coming to my house and you live like an hour and a half away, if you're going to be late, you would call me and say, I know that you like to know I'm going to be about 5 minutes late.
Totally.
Right? So you manage that, and when you're with me, I manage part of your kinestheticness.
Right.
It's part of paying attention.
That's
it sounds like we have a little bit of bad bridge line coming in again, and the change just happened in the last 2 or 3 minutes. You might not know, but it could be you. So if you've made any changes to your phone or any changes to your mute and unmute, you might not know it, but it could be your phone that's causing the problem. And it's 8:30, so we are going to wrap up the call. Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll just end by hearing from a couple people about what they learned today that inspired them or something that was an aha moment. And ideally, the person that is on that phone, the internet phone, or having that phone problem, if you could really just honor the group and not come back to the class tomorrow with that, we'd love to give you the recordings by email or by the link. They're usually up on the site like within a couple hours, I think with the exception of yesterday, but Diane's going to look after that. Let's hear from a couple people. Just a reminder of what your name is. Who'd like to go first?
Michael, this is Carol.
Hey, Carol. Welcome.
Hi. I just love some of the language. I love the thought of in the past because so many people wallow around in what's not right, and just shifting it to in the past seems like a real smooth way to do that.
Yeah. The other thing it does, it allows you to express it but not give it the attention. Like I could say, oh, in the past I was an overeater, but I don't say that now with the charge. It's like I say, I overeat, and I used to overeat, and I can feel that. But when I say in the past, it kind of like puts it. I disassociate from it. I think we're going to learn that later through Linda, but it allows me to talk about it, but put it on a shelf. It's like I don't have feelings about it. In the past, I did overeat, but I don't have the emotion tied to it anymore. So that's a great saying.
Nice.
Thanks. Who's next?
It's Tracy. I appreciated what you said about turning it from worry into curiosity.
Okay, from worry to being curious about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's even when, with law of attraction, even when the negative stuff happens to us, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it. So are you going to say, wow, this is ugly. How did I ever attract this? A little voice might say, I'm curious about that. And what it does, it makes you take ownership for attracting it, and then the figuring it out, which I wouldn't spend too long, and say, okay, this is why I got this. Yeah. And one more person. Okay, just as a reminder, I'm going to encourage you to visit Linda's website. It's lindarellacoaching.com. That's LINDERELLA, like Cinderella, but Linda. So it's lindarellacoaching.com. And she is just finishing the touches on her 4-CD set where she takes each one of the communication styles and teaches lots of stuff. And I also promise you that the recordings that she did on the 4 styles is the most available information about these 4 NLP styles than anybody. We actually know a friend that has been promising to write about these since 1990 and never did. We thought she would have the most, and she never did it, so guess who has the most now? So I'm going to encourage you to take a look at that. Let's say goodbye. We're going to meet on the regular bridge number tomorrow, and ideally it's going to be a smooth, clean transition to the new bridge. With a little bit of contrast at the end. So let's say goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.